Hello, everyone. My name is Hashim Mteuzi. I'm the Program Director of Civic Tech Partnerships and Fellowships at Code for America. I'm joined on stage by a panel of esteemed folks who you'll get to meet in just a moment. But first, I have a question or something that I'd like the audience to begin thinking about. And that's, what would this country be like if all government services and systems were built based on the direct needs and preferences of the communities they were intended to serve? How do we do that? I'm here with the Opportunity Accelerator, which is a collaboration of 5 national organizations. We have the Center for Government Excellence at Johns Hopkins University. We have Code for America. We have the Harvard Kennedy School Government Performance Lab, Results for America, and the W. Haywood Burns Institute. The Opportunity Accelerator is here to help local governments promote economic well-being and advance racial equity to improve the lives of their residents. We'll help local governments establish place-based partnerships with community-based organizations and residents to remove barriers to upward mobility and improve quality of life. In order to do that, there needs to be a shift away from existing mental models of community engagement to new models centered on race, equity, and justice, leading with lived experience, and listening deeply to residents' voices. We plan to coach local governments on how to center communities and to co-design interventions with them. Now, our 5 organizations have traditionally done things in vastly different ways, yet we've come together to radically reimagine what's possible in service of supporting local governments' ability to co-design with community. Now, let me turn to my friends on the stage here. I'd like for you to please introduce yourselves with your name, your organization, and your role.
Hi everyone, it's good to be here. I am Angelique Kedem. I'm a senior advisor at the W. Haywood Burns Institute.
Hi everyone, my name is Ivey and I am at the Center for Government Excellence and I'm the director of that organization.
I'm Gloria Gong. I'm the executive director of the Harvard Kennedy School Government Performance Lab.
Hi everyone, Jennifer Park, executive director of the Opportunity Accelerator at Results for America.
Thank you all for that. Now I'd like to ask you all some questions. Gloria, I'd like to start with you. Why are we doing this with government?
Why government? That's a great question, Hashim. I actually feel like our panel this morning and the conversation just preceding this really set us up for this. You know, the critique of government, of course, that you hear all the time is that it's enormous and moves too slowly. But if you invert that, what you can realize is that means that government is almost always outspending and outlasting other institutions. And so it's a critical component if you're thinking about any kind of impact at scale. And state and local governments alone, which many of our organizations work with, are conduits for hundreds of billions of dollars every year in supports and services that touch families really directly, education and public health and social work. So this is a place where you can really make a difference. And this group of organizations has decades of experience proving that you can actually move the needle of that kind of gigantic ship that is government and change the results that it delivers for residents. So I think one important reason is impact. The second reason is an inverse of that, which is government is often a source of deep and institutionalized harm. My team's doing a project right now in Texas where we're working with families that are at risk of losing their kids to the child welfare system. And as we talked with those families and formed parents into an advisory group that would change the direction of these initiatives, one of the things that we discovered was that 95% of the families that we're trying to serve through these upstream preventative supports 95% of them had had contact with the criminal justice system previously in these really harmful and destabilizing ways. Parents incarcerated, crippling fines and fees, and what the families consistently told us was also this deeply sense of dehumanization and not being seen as a person, much less a caring parent. And so what they said to us is, look, if you're trying to create these upstream supports that keep people out of one system, the child welfare system, you need to go a step backwards and figure out how to stop them from touching touching the criminal justice system, because that's creating a bunch of the harms that you're then trying to solve. So another reason to work with government is because government is often creating some of the barriers to thriving that need to be removed so that people can reach their full potential, and particularly needs to be transformed and reimagined so that it isn't creating these historic and concentrated harms, particularly in communities of color. And then the final reason, I think, is because, at least when my organization was thinking about joining the Opportunity Accelerator, I went and talked to a bunch of community organizations in jurisdictions where we were working, and I particularly went and found those collective impact backbone organizations that had been gathering advocates and faith leaders and community residents and creating these, ambitious transformative visions for, more just and effective services. And I asked them, what would be helpful to your work? What is the missing piece? And one of the things I heard consistently from those organizations is that they said, get the government at the table. Our work and our vision is being stymied because government isn't showing up as an activated and capable partner to us. And so they said, get them in here, get them in these seats, have them bring their money and their people and all these systems that are in place, the public health system, the education system, and join us in advancing our community's vision for change. And so I think the final reason that we need to be thinking about government is because communities are telling us that's a missing piece of the puzzle that they need if their vision for change is going to be effective and lasting.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Okay, our next question is for Angelique. Angelique, why are we talking about race, equity, and well-being?
Well, first, despite the many barriers that people of color face in this country, we're still here, and we continue to make invaluable contributions to the vitality of the economy, culture, and health. And we've seen this clearly during the pandemic with the number of essential workers who took on the burden of keeping us fed, caring for our elders, and keeping our hospitals running, and most essential workers are people of color. But we know that economic mobility and wealth in the US is racialized, both from the history of this country, from redlining to the GI Bill that built wealth for white Americans, and also our current day realities and the research. I just want to mention the economic mobility research done by Raj Chetty, where, as an example, the research reveals that for Black boys, even those living in million-dollar households, have the least economic mobility of any group. So what we see there is that even getting into the top income percentile isn't enough of a protective factor to maintain prosperity and safety. He also finds that there are a few factors correlated with upward economic mobility for Black boys. They're living in a low poverty neighborhood with good schools, intuitive, high Black father presence in the neighborhood, and low levels of racial bias amongst whites. But only 4.2% of Black children in this country live in a neighborhood with even two of those factors. So literally just a handful of neighborhoods in the entire US. So we can see that race is baked into every facet of the fabric of this society, and because of that, we have to look at race, ethnicity, and place in our design if we want to achieve an inclusive and equitable economic mobility. So at the Burns Institute, and together with our partners on this stage, we believe that it is possible to build systems that promote the health and safety and prosperity and belonging of every individual and community. We call it structural well-being. And core to structural well-being is doing what we're talking about at this conference, centering communities of color, centering the lived experience of people that we've pushed to the margins, and dealing with structural racism, recognizing that the issues we're trying to solve have history, that they're multifaceted, they're not narrowed to one agency, one system, one department, we have to look at the environment. And that means getting different stakeholders together in partnership with impacted communities to examine our values that anchor our systems, examine the mental models that anchor our systems, and together to create new values, new mental models that will help us design the systems that get us to our collective well-being.
Thank you, Angelique. Angelique dropping knowledge for us all. I hope you all were taking notes. That was amazing. That was incredible. All right, next I'd like to turn it to Amber. Amber, can you tell us why we're focused on co-design?
So I think we've heard a few key things from both Gloria and Angelique around. Gloria, you're talking about the community wanted government there on the ground. Angelique, you're talking a bit about how these systems that are in place, like racial inequity is built into every single system in this country. So with those two things being polar opposites in a way, we have to bring the two together. What does that mean? Government has, and do not shoot the messenger, government has a lot of resources that community does not have, right? You have access to time, staff, and these different data sets that the community may not have access to, right? Government also brings in folks who are really trying to come in and make the world a better place to ensure that we have a society that's thriving, that's continuing to build, and you have people with great intentions trying to do amazing things. But the problem with that is that government doesn't have all the answers, and that's something we have to immediately acknowledge if we're going to do true work that's going to improve outcomes for our most vulnerable residents. On the other side, we have community. Community is so passionate. If you go and talk to someone in the community right now, a youth who is looking for a job, he or she will tell you exactly what it is they're looking for, exactly what they need. They will tell you their solutions without you even having to give them options. They know what it is. They live it every single day. They hear it from their own families. They hear it in their own lived experience. But the thing that they're lacking is they don't have access to the data that government has access to. They do not have access to the resources that could literally change their lives in different ways. So what we have to do is bring the two together. And when I say bring the two together, we have to be very sensitive to that. Based on what you heard from Gloria as well as Angelique, there are a lot of shared histories in this country that we haven't dealt with. And this work is not easy. It's actually pretty hard. I tell folks all the time, if it's easy, you're doing something wrong. So let's look back and really dig into it. But you're dealing with things such as building trust. Government has traditionally caused harm through policies, laws, and putting things in place that have led to very traumatic outcomes for a lot of communities in this country. That doesn't mean we can't change that. That doesn't mean we can't change the view of that, but it means building trust. We can't just slap a Band-Aid on it. And building trust starts with bringing us all together to the same table. The answer isn't in one person, it isn't in one place, it isn't in one platform, but together with government bringing its resources, the community bringing their lived experiences, what they understand of the different issues, we can have solutions together. I will also say that does not mean having one person on your panel from the community or one person in your working group from the community. That is not co-design. Co-design is when we walk into a room where we have youth leaders telling us what they need. Juveniles between the ages of 18 to 25 saying to us, we need opportunities. You all are calling us opportunity youth. I don't even know what that means, but we need opportunities in our schools as well as opportunity in employment. This is how we get there. This is what we're bringing to the table. And government sitting down and listening and being a part of that. That also means government saying, hey, individuals, we have data and can tell you how to make better solutions or target things in a different way because we know what's happening in community and we can give you this insight. Gone are the days where we can live in siloed worlds where we do not share across different communities and we do not share this information. We empower people by helping them to be part of the solution. COVID showed us that. Everyone in this room came in and garnered around COVID to do whatever it was that we had to do, whether it was vaccines, boosters, masks, 6 feet distancing. That did not happen because the government did it. We all had to be a part of that. So we have to show people how to be a part of the solutions from the frontline employee to the people in the community. And in order for us to do this in the right way, we have to co-design together. If we don't, we're going to be stuck where we are 10 years from now, and I don't believe we're at a place where we want to continue that. So co-design is a way that gives us the access to resources together, allows us to build together, and allow us to see a better outcome that does lead to true economic mobility for communities.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Amber. Okay, so Jen, given everything that we've talked about up here,
Yeah.
can you tell us, what does building the path forward together look like?
First of all, I want to say what an honor it is to just share this space with all of you and everyone in the audience and also virtually. And I am learning constantly from my colleagues across all of our organizations that make up the Opportunity Accelerator. Can you imagine just like how different communities would be if we actually were able to accomplish this? If government leaders had the capacity and the tools and the resources to not only build authentic and meaningful relationships with their communities, but start with and center those that are most impacted first. And can you then imagine that at scale, focused on the life milestones and outcomes of those impacted individuals? It's incredible to imagine how collectively we can come together and how collectively government, community, advocacy groups, philanthropy can all work to really focus on the outcomes that matter most in the communities, the zip codes that matter most in the regions that we are working with. Gloria, Angelique, Amber all spoke about the value of government, the importance of collaboration, how anchoring our work in structural well-being is essential if we're actually going to start to dismantle some of the racist systems. And those are all critical to build this path forward together. And I think collectively we that make up the Opportunity Accelerator and all of you who are here really believe in the power of the public sector and local leaders to address racial disparities and achieve, ideally, kind of the social and economic mobility we want to see in the communities that we're working with. And so when I think about building a path together, there are three kind of themes that I heard from this group that I just want to elevate. The first is really focused on uplifting the voices of residents and those that are most impacted in the communities that we work with. How are we telling their stories? How are we telling the stories of the government leaders who are showing up to work every day, thinking to themselves, how do we actually solve this problem and work with the community to find solutions that meet their needs? And then the second I would say is how we all collectively collaborate with one another. We are 5 national organizations, but there are civic technologists in the room, there are volunteers, there are community partners, there are government leaders at all levels of government, and we need to think about how we bring our resources, how we actually think about better collaborating with one another if we're going to show and be able to partner with government leaders on the ground as well. And the last thing I will say is, and something that consistently inspires me, is kind of our shared values and our shared vision. I think we all work and do this work, whether you're in the public sector or even nonprofit or community leaders, we're working so that we can actually impact the individuals that are in our communities that we're serving. And so how do we continue to foster that shared identity, shared value, shared vision of really being able to strengthen the well-being of the individuals in the communities that we are working with, and also foster kind of that thriving community that we all hope to live in ourselves.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was incredible. What a wonderful summation of everything that we've heard up here. Can we just give the panelists a round of applause? They have been incredible. I'd like to thank the audience for being here and for tuning in. Please give yourselves a round of applause. All right, thank you, everyone.